When you're on your dog walk or in the park, how many times have you heard, "My dog is friendly from afar"? Should you let your dog meet other dogs when you're on your walk? It could seem harmless, right? But what if I told you that these interactions, whether they be short or long, could be causing more harm than good to your dog? From being anxious to aggressive behaviors, and there could be a lot more going on that you don't really know. In this video, we'll be discussing whether you should let your dog meet other dogs on a walk, in the park, and how to keep your puppy safe. So keep watching because your dog will thank you. So the first thing I want to cover is socialization. A lot of people think socialization is letting your dog meet other dogs constantly from when they're a puppy. That's what they need to do. They need to learn how to be with another dog, other dogs. And to be fair, I even had this idea in my mind before doing all the research and investigation. I thought socialization was them being with other dogs. But that isn't the case. After doing research, what socialization actually means is for your dog to be calm and collected in a range of different environments. For example, if you're at a coffee shop, are they relaxed or are they like, what's happening? On the train, on the bus, those environments are, in the park with other dogs, seeing a dog from afar, how are they in those environments? You know what I mean? What socialization is, in my mind, it's the art of doing nothing. How should you do it? How do you practice it? So, like I just mentioned, those different locations, I would actually take your dog to those different places. So whether it be a coffee shop, the train, you don't want to stay on the train forever, but if you're taking your dog on the train, a park, so you want to take him to these different locations and do absolutely nothing. And what I mean by that is literally, you go to the park, you sit on a bench, and you do nothing. You wait for your dog to relax and calm down. What I would recommend at the beginning, because again, your dog won't know how to behave in these environments, and you want to be able to show your dog how they should behave. So what I would recommend is, if you train with treats or with kibble, is if you're in this busy environment, for example, I'll show you a video of a train, and once your dog relaxes, and you notice when they're fully, their heads on their paws, or you'll notice that split point where they are relaxed. Once they are relaxed and once they are only in that state, I would give him a bit of treat or a bit of kibble. Then he'll realize, oh, so all I have to do in this environment is just relax, and that's all. And that was it. And obviously, after time, just with any other training, you want to slowly remove the kibble, and then now I can trust him on the train, for example. However, you don't want to take your dog to these busy places from the get-go. As in, you don't want to take him to a coffee shop at peak busyness. You don't want to take him on the train on rush hour. That is disaster waiting to happen, because then it's going to be so overwhelming for the dog that they're not going to listen. You're not really going to do any good with training. So you're going to get frustrated. The dog's going to probably get frustrated. Just gonna say, forget it. That wasn't a good session. I'm not gonna do that ever again. What I would recommend is going when it's less busy. For example, if you're going on a train, maybe go early in the morning on the train when you know it's not as busy, and have somewhere in mind. Maybe do a couple stops, or the same thing with the bus. Do a couple stops and do it like in increments. You don't want to send your dog straight to the deep end, and you want to expose them to different environments. You don't want to only just do the train. You want to do the park. You want to do a coffee shop. You want to do the train, you want to do the city centre, all of that stuff. The second thing I want to address is what can happen when you let your dog meet other dogs. So the first thing is they can learn bad behaviours. If the other dog that they're meeting, is aggressive, is dominant, they will learn those bad behaviours. Especially at the beginning, if you're exposing them to that constantly, they are going to pick that up and think to themselves, right, okay, this is how I need to act around other dogs. So then your dog will be showing those behaviors off in the future. The other thing is your dog might have a bad experience. If you don't know the other dog, they could be aggressive, as I said. They could attack your dog, and then that could lead to your dog being anxious, fearful around other dogs in the future. And I think that's where from bad experiences, a lot of the unwanted behaviors, for example, barking, comes from. The third thing is, as I said, it can build up anxiety and fear. So from those bad experiences, if they're constantly having those, they are just going to be anxious and fearful around other dogs. And then that could lead to them being aggressive themselves, not wanting to be aggressive, but in their mind, that's the only way that they can almost protect themselves. Almost like another product of having these experiences is leash reactivity. If they have a bad experience, you're gonna get the barking, you're gonna get the leash reactivity, you're gonna get the pulling. But at the same time, if they have a good experience and they're constantly being exposed to it, that can also lead to leash reactivity. So if they see a dog and they want to get to that dog, that loose lead is out the window. So I recommend to maybe just not. What I recommend is to not really meet a dog, especially a dog that you don't know, because all of these things, you don't know how it's going to pan out. You don't know how the other dog is. And this is just a list of what could happen. The third thing I wanted to speak about is, can your dog then meet other dogs? Can they be introduced to other dogs? And yeah, I want to say they can. So when can they? I would firstly teach a dog how to walk on a loose lead, and if they see another dog but they're relaxed themselves, they're not pulling on the lead, they almost ask for permission from you. How do they ask for permission? They might look at you, they'll be a bit hesitant to go, they acknowledge your presence. That is when I would say, they could meet another dog. So that kind of leads in nicely to the second point within this one is, do they acknowledge your presence? So if you were to say, right, let's go, are they gonna go? Do they listen to you? Do they still listen to you, or are they just completely fixated on this other dog? The third thing is, I would recommend, if you are meeting another dog, is to meet in a controlled environment. Whether that be to book out a field or an open space. That's what I would recommend. For example, when Apollo was a puppy, we had a dog trainer, and the other thing I would recommend is, if you know someone with a role model dog, or that they are well behaved, they have good manners, I would recommend to maybe get a session in with them. And obviously for us, it was the dog trainer had a well behaved dog, and we asked if we could book a session in, and we booked out this open space. Apollo then had good experience. He learned how to be around other dogs, because again, he never knew how to behave. For all he knew, he just wanted to be annoying and start. I remember when they first met, Apollo would buff into her, paw at her, jump on her, and after a while, that isn't the nicest. And then Apollo got a bit of corrections, and then he realized slowly, okay, actually, I can be around this dog, but I need to recognize, right, that she doesn't want to play like that. I need to play like this, for example. But I would recommend getting almost like a role model dog where is relaxed, it can tolerate other dogs. So moving on to the last point, should they meet on or off the lead? And I think there's pros and cons to both. And a lot of people will say, no, don't recommend on the lead. And then other people will say, it's safer to do it on the lead. When you are meeting quickly a dog, like for 5 seconds, 10 seconds, you're not going to take the lead off and just go, see you later, bye. You're going to carry on walking. They could meet, quick 5 seconds. All right, let's go. You'll have to keep them on the lead. But the bad thing is, for example, is if you are meeting them for a longer period of time, you could get tangled, especially if there's 2 leads going on. And then if someone's got some form of, something happens between the dogs, to get that untangled and then to sort them out, it's just a mess. The other thing is, if you're meeting them on the lead, they can become frustrated, because they're wanting to play with this dog. You're there kind of like, you could be standing still, or you could be, whatever it is, but that lead is going to be taut, and it's almost going to be like the dog's going to be getting choked out maybe, but that will build up frustration in the dog. when they are meeting this other dog. The good thing is, like I said, if it is a quick thing, you can easily, right, let's go. And you do that with your lead. But the other thing off the lead is, like I just said, they could run off and get into some trouble. You don't know what happened. Where are you where you're meeting this dog? And, if they're off the lead, are there roads nearby? There cars? Are they just gone far away, and then to get them back, they're not going to listen? It's all of these things. But if they are meeting on the lead, I'd say make sure they're relaxed, they acknowledge your presence, and it's quick. I'm talking 5 seconds max. Quick meet, boom, go. The other thing is, if you're meeting for a long period of time, and I've already spoken on this, is book out a space. It's always better to book out a space, especially if you're doing it for a long period of time. And with the space, they can be off lead. And the other thing is, if you need to get hold of them, they're in this space, and it'll be pretty easy to get hold of them. But if they are meeting a dog in an enclosed environment, make sure the other dog is relaxed and calm, and all of that jazz. If you can't book a space, maybe maybe the other owner has a garden, or maybe you have a mate who has a garden. Just think about those bits. One thing I definitely wanted to mention in this video, and maybe it's not so much on the lead, off the lead, I guess it's off the lead kind of meeting, but dog parks. And I think dog parks are more popular in America. There are dog parks here in London, don't get me wrong, but I wouldn't recommend to take a dog to a dog park. In my mind, it's just a recipe waiting, it's just a disaster waiting to happen, because you have all of these different unknown dogs. Yes, you'll have your regulars in there who will be okay with each other, but then you're adding new dogs to the mix who you don't know if they're reactive, they're dominant, if they're fearful, if they're anxious. You don't know what you're adding into the mix. And then, especially if you're new and you're adding your poor little dog into the mix, you don't know what kind of experience he's going to have. I would just stay away from them in general. Apollo's never gone to a dog park, and that was it. So what I would recommend is taking your dog to the park and practice that socialization. If that is outside the dog park, practice that. Sit down outside. Let your dog observe, but in a calm manner. And it's going to take a lot of practice, especially in all of these different environments, especially if you're adding dogs to the mix. It will take a lot of practice for your dog to almost acknowledge a dog and then be like, right, okay, dog's there, fine. That will take a lot of practice to get to. Right, so we've spoken about socialization. What can happen if your dog meets another dog? Can your dog meet other dogs? And whether it should be on lead or off the lead. And I've given a lot of pros and cons and a lot of views. So what do I think? I believe dogs shouldn't really meet if they don't know each other, if you don't know the dog, until for example, I live in an area where there are a bunch of dogs, and there's been months that goes by where I would not let Apollo meet other dogs because I didn't know what their nature is, and I still till this day haven't let Apollo meet many of the other dogs because I see how they are. So you almost kind of want to scout it a little bit before you let your dog meet those dogs. But in general, I just wouldn't. If you're walking, in a new environment and there's a bunch of dogs, or like a dog on the lead or off the lead, I just try to stay away from it in general. You don't know what the outcome is going to be, and a lot of the time it's better to prevent those things because, like I mentioned earlier, the leash pulling, the barking, all of that will take double the work to get rid of that again. So it's better to almost not have the possibility of that happening at all. So the one of the times when Apollo would meet and be with other dogs is when he goes to the dog boarders. One thing I would recommend when you are looking for a dog sitters is how do they approach the booking. And what I mean by that is, so before you book, and when you're asking your questions on the phone, blah, 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 do they ask for you to come first and have almost like an intro session to have a look at the dog, to see how they are, and also for you to see how they are with your dog? So do they ask for that? That is always a good sign if they do ask. If they don't, and they say, yeah, bring the dog or I'll take the dog, I wouldn't do that. I would personally also go there. And if you do want them to be a dog sitter, I'd probably even suggest yourself and say, can I come over and see what the environment's like, how he is with other dogs, you know, all of this stuff. That's one thing I would consider when you are looking for a dog sitter. So yeah, that was the video for today, guys. If you did like the video, please subscribe and give it a thumbs up. Let me know what other videos you guys want to see, and I can definitely make a video on that. I do want to do those training videos. So yeah, let me know what you guys think in the comments on what you want me to speak about. And yeah, so bye.